Hi, I'm Terry Forbes, and I am your host for the Gashe'em Offense podcast. I look forward to talking football with you for the next 45 minutes, and I really am excited about telling you about the Gashe'em Offense because I believe that the Gashe'em Offense will lead to the next evolution of offensive football. Wow. Now, that's a bold statement. If I was out there with you listening instead of behind this microphone, I'd have some questions. And my first question would be, who is this guy? And my second question would be, where does he get off claiming that he has the next evolution of offensive football? Well, those are good questions, and I think they require my giving an answer to them and trying to tell you a little bit about myself and about my football experience. I played football at Hiram College, Division III in Ohio, and my first high school head coaching job was at Black River High School when I was 25 years old. Now, Black River is a very rural area. We had a small student body. There were about 400 students, and things went wonderfully there. I had a great time in my 4 years there. Then I went to Nordonia High School. Nordonia is in a suburban area. It has a medium to large enrollment, and the team had not been winning. And our first team, if you measured them by the standards of bigger, faster, stronger, they weren't very good. But if you measured them along the standards of toughness and will and togetherness and smarts, they were off the chart good. And they found a way to win 7 games, all decided by 6 points or less, and lead us to an 8-1-1 season. And that paved the way for the next 2 teams to come in. Now, they were a lot more talented physically as some of those sophomores grew into be juniors and seniors. And they ended up at Nordonia having a 19-game undefeated streak. So then I went to Canton McKinley High School. Now, McKinley is an urban environment. It is a large enrollment, and it has a very rich football tradition in Ohio. And at McKinley, our first team went 9-2, lost to 2 real good teams, but that team laid a great foundation for what was to come. And that was a team that was 13-0 in our second season, won the Ohio State Championship, beat Cincinnati Moeller 13-0 in the state championship game. And that was significant because they had Moeller had a 48-game winning streak, and that we snapped, and also were 3-time reigning national champs. So they didn't get it the 4th time, and neither did we. They listed us as second, and Warner Robins High School in Georgia was listed first, and Warner Robins had an undefeated great year themselves. So I saw myself as a high school coach, and I wanted nothing more than to be the best high school coach I could be. And then out of the blue, Jim Dennison calls. And Jim was the head football coach at Akron University. And he had a defensive coordinator job open and offered it to me. Well, that required me to do some thinking. That was a pretty prestigious college position at entry level, let's say, to college. And I thought about it. At first, I turned it down. And then Jim was pretty persistent, and I stayed with it, and eventually I decided to go and went to Akron for 4 years. Had some great defensive coaches to coach with during those years. And during those 4 years, together we gave up fewer points than any other Division I or 1AA team in the country. So at this point, I want to pause and insert a nugget. And I'll do this from time to time. And it's just something that from my past that maybe I can insert, and for some of you, it might hit at the right time and might inspire you a little bit. For others, hopefully just find it interesting. And this nugget at Akron University involves Mark D'Antonio. Now, some of you, or many of you listening, will recognize D'Antonio right away as being head football coach for 13 years at Michigan State and being very successful there, and winding up as one of the top coaches around, just retired a couple years ago. So Mark, though, the part I'm going to talk about is the first part, and that is he got his first full-time job as a defensive back coach at Akron University when I was a defensive coordinator. Now, Mark had played at South Carolina, defensive back. He was 22 years old, graduated, and was looking to be a college football coach. So he got a graduate assistant's job, which is a normal entry-level position for somebody wanting to do that. And he wound up staying there for a couple years and then tried to get head coaching jobs, which didn't come up. And what happened is he wound up being a graduate assistant for 5 years at 3 different schools under 4 different defensive back coaches. And that took persistence because graduate assistants, basically they make peanuts. They do get a chance to coach players, but they coach within the philosophy of their full-time position coach that they're working with. So he had a chance to work for 4 great guys and coach 4 different philosophies before he got his first job at Akron. And when he got it, he did great. He must have wondered before he got that job if he'd ever get one. If you imagine you go from 22 years old to 27 years old and you're in the same position, that had to be very frustrating for him, but he stayed with it, did a great job at Akron, was picked up by Jim Tressel, who went to Youngstown State as head football coach, and together, Mark was his defensive coordinator. They won several national championships at the 1AA level. And then Tressel gets the head coaching job at Ohio State and brings Mark along with him. So he went very quickly. Once he started, he went very quickly from coaching defensive backs at Akron to being defensive coordinator at Ohio State. Okay, so I'm at Akron, and I'm doing my job and not thinking about much else other than trying to get better. And Lou Holtz calls up Jim Dennison. And Lou had some questions from Jim about me. And then at the end of those questions, he said he wanted to interview me for a position on the Notre Dame staff. Now, Lou had been hired just about a week before this phone call. And he wanted me to come up and interview, so I flew to South Bend, spent some time with him, and got the defensive back position. And that happened awfully quickly, obviously. A couple nuggets about Notre Dame, stuff that people would usually ask me. They'd say, what was it like coming out of the tunnel the first time? And I thought about that, and I thought, if you were a freshman and you knew you weren't going to play unless it was a blowout, you were 4th or 5th team, and you were happy to be dressed, and you're wearing a Notre Dame uniform, and you're coming out of that tunnel with a band playing and 80,000 people yelling and just a tremendous feeling, and you would be totally impressed and enamored by all this hoopla that's going on. But if you were a starter, or you were going to play a lot in the first quarter in special teams or whatever, or you're a coach, when you're running out on the field, the first things you're thinking about is, how can we win this game? What can I do in the next few minutes to help us win the game? You check out your equipment to make sure that your headset's working and that there's nothing negative going on. And then you try to think of something. What can I say? What can I do in the next couple minutes before we take the field and get ready to play? How can we get off to a fast start? So, another one that I got asked quite a bit is, wasn't it great to coach all those great players? What was it like to coach all those great players? And it was fun, particularly at practice when you were just Notre Dame and you got a chance to see some of them change directions and move in ways that nobody else you had seen move before. And you say, wow, that's really something. These guys are pretty good. But then it comes game time, and you look over to the other side of the field, and you see Alabama or Michigan or Penn State or whoever we're playing that week, and they got the same guys. And all at once, it's not so great. It's great to coach those guys, but it would be great if the other side didn't have them too. So it balances out. Okay, after Notre Dame, I wound up starting the first recruit evaluation service in the United States. Started with just me, and then we grew to 8 full-time people over the years. And basically, we took experienced coaches, went into the high schools, probably 35 to 40 different schools every week, saw 6 or 7 practices every week, 3 or 4 games, and when we left the city, we had a pretty good idea of who were the best prospects in that city, or if we left the region of the state, depending where we were doing, we'd write our report and we'd get it out to the recruiters and the universities. Now, I had just been recruiting, so I knew how stringent the recruiting rules were at that time. And I knew that we could deliver something that college coaches would want and then they would actually need. But people kept saying, boy, you're taking quite a risk. Nobody else is doing this. What do you is taking a big chance? But I didn't see it that way at all. I thought there was no risk whatsoever. And as it turned out, in a few years, every Division I school in the country was buying the Forbes report. Now, I tell you this partly too because I see a real parallel because between that business and the Gashe'em offense. Here's what I mean. The Gashe'em offense is very different from anything that is being run today, anywhere in football that I'm aware of. If you run it and decide to run the whole thing the way it's meant to be run, people will say, that's a big risk. Nobody's running this. If it was so good, somebody would be running it. What are you doing? And it's going to take some real nerve to actually do something like that is out there. But I think there's no risk at all in running the Gashe'em offense. Here's the reason why. I coached those 3 high school teams who all had real good defenses, Akron and Notre Dame. Now take those 5 teams, and I knew pretty much whatever our players knew and what we had coached them. Either I had taught it to them or somebody else on our staff. And never once did we mention anything that would help them defend the Gashe'em offense. And then I have this job where I watch 100 practices plus every year for several years. And I was out on the field a lot of times. Coaches would call me out, and I'd stand by the huddles and right in the action. And I never heard anybody say anything that would help stop the Gashe'em offense. So I believe that the plays work. 70% of them are proven plays that we have on film. We have them working. And if nobody knows how to stop them, we've got a pretty good thing. So what I'm saying is trust your gut. If you think it's going to work, if it makes perfect sense to you that it will work, trust your gut and go for it. Now, I told you a lot about my high school experiences and the different levels, told you about my college experiences at those different levels, about starting a business. But I didn't tell you any of those things to try to impress you. That's of no reason for me to do that, and not what I would do if I had my choice. But I did have one goal, and that's why I told you, and that is my goal was to have you view me as an experienced coach, a guy who has been around, who maybe, perhaps, just might be able to tell you something that has an effect for you and helps you in your quest to be the best coach that you can be. Now, I realize I haven't told you anything yet about the particulars of the Gashe'em offense, but that's going to happen in a few seconds because I'm ready to talk about the Gashe'em offense and stop talking about Terry Forbes and other things in the past. The Gashe'em offense is the future. I will tell you why it's different. You'll get a good feel for that. You'll get an idea of the pillars upon which the offense rests and why I think it's so fantastic. Okay, first thing, Gashe'em is a collection of plays that are explosive and get chunks of yards. Each snap that we run is designed to get a first down on that particular snap, okay? So if it's 1st and 10, our play is designed to get 12 yards, 25 yards, 30 yards, to be able to get 10 or more is really what we're talking about. Now, conventional offenses, that's not the way it really works. Most of the time, if they get 5 or 6 yards on first down, they're real happy. They got a decent situation, and then on second down, if they can get 3 or 4 more yards and get to a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 2, they feel good because they're on schedule. They've had 2 plays and they're on schedule to make their first down. All they have to do is convert, and they think they can on a 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 most of the time. Gashe'em offense is entirely different. Gashe'em offense on 1st and 10, we're looking to make 10 or more yards. Now, let's just say that for whatever reason, and some plays don't always work, we call a play designed to make more than 10 yards. It fails, and we get 2nd and 10. Okay, we run a different play that looks nothing like the first, but its design is the same in that it's meant to get more than 10 yards. And let's say we have a receiver open, but he drops the ball. Drops will happen. It's football. So we're at 3rd and 10. Now, our 3rd and 10 call is exactly the same as our 1st and 10 call or 2nd and 10 call because they're all the same type play designed to get more than 10 yards. And let's say our 3rd and 10 call makes 17 yards. First down, okay? We have moved the chains, and it shows that all we have to do with the Gashe'em offense is to have 1 out of every 3, in some cases out of every 4, plays succeed, and we move the chains and we get a first down. Okay? In a conventional offense, you're 1st and 10 and you lose 3 yards, and now you're 2nd and 13, and you are behind the chains. And no conventional offensive coach wants to be behind the chains because now his percentages of making a first down have dropped dramatically. So it's really a tough situation he's put himself in with 1 failed play. So that is one of the differences, and a big one, really, that is a pillar of the Gashe'em offense. Chunk plays, big plays, every play. Never let your foot off the gas. Next one is we want a big advantage on every play. Let's say that off to the right, you have 3 blockers, or we have 3 blockers, and you have 3 defensive guys. We don't want to go there. We want to go to the left where we have 5 blockers and you have 2 or 3 guys. The numbers just work. We've got a big advantage. Occasionally, one of your 2 or 3 guys may sift through and make a tackle, and the play doesn't work. But for the most part, we got the percentages working for us when we got 5 guys blocking 2 or 3. So we want a big advantage on blocking plays. On passing plays, we do not want to have plays where we have to go down. Our receiver makes a real sharp cut, goes to the sideline, the corner's following him. It's a tight window, and a quarterback's got to put it right into that window to get a completion. That's not a Gashe'em play. A Gashe'em play is that we run some kind of backfield action that draws the defense to it, and then we slide somebody into an open area, and he's wide open to catch the pass. Now you'll say, well, anybody would want to do that. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people do it, and maybe 1 time a game, 2 times a game. We're going to do it 50 times a game, or maybe 25 or 30 times a game, because we're going to run the ball a fair amount also. But that's what we want to do, get guys wide open. Next thing, the next pillar upon which it's built is tempo. And everybody in football today is talking about their tempo. But ours is completely different because we don't care how many plays we run. We don't try to tire the defense out by running one after the other or anything else. We care about one thing, and I don't know of anybody that does it quite this way. From the time in the huddle, and we'll be in a sugar huddle 3 yards from the football. We'll be in the huddle, the quarterback will call a play and say, break. And on break, 10 guys will fly to their positions as fast as they can go. For example, the wide receivers should hustle to their position as fast as they do if they're running a pass route. They get to their position, they get immobile in the correct position. We have 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. The quarterback says, freeze. They stay there for 1 second. He says, go, and we're snapping the football. From the time of the quarterback saying break in the huddle to the snap of the football, 4 seconds. That's what we want, 4 seconds. Now, if you're a defensive guy and you're over there, you're waiting for the offense, they're still in the huddle. They break and they're flying and they're moving. Going to take you some time. I'm going to say a second and a half for you to figure out who's going where, and just an idea of what the formation might be, okay? So the first second and a half, you really can't go anywhere too fast. So you have 2.5 seconds to make your move, get to your position, and then play football from that position. Not much time. And what this does, this tempo from break to snap in 4 seconds, it eliminates defensive communication. Anything coming from the sideline, from the coaches, zilch, can't help. Even the safety on the field or the linebacker who's the most experienced, who gets everybody lined up, usually can't help. They got 2.5 seconds to get themselves lined up, and they'll be struggling to do that, let alone help the 2 technique defensive tackle. So it eliminates defensive confusion entirely. And we'll have a stopwatch in practice all the time, getting the time down, getting it down to the 100. And we'll also use the stopwatch on the game field. So as the game progresses, let's say it's in the 4th quarter, we'll be timing each play from break to snap, make sure the times are still good, and that we're keeping that tempo going. Another pillar of the Gashe'em offense is unusual formations. Now, we will use unusual formations in plays about 30% of the time. And to know what an unusual formation is, you have to know what we consider a usual formation. Okay, a usual formation, the most usual, is a center flanked by 2 guards, flanked by 2 tackles. Okay, that's what everybody uses, and that's what's very usual. Also, we consider usual an unbalanced line where one guy is unbalanced, where you have two guys on one side of the center, and then you have four guys on the other side of the center. Now, either both guards are on this side or both tackles or both ends. Doesn't really matter. If you have two to one side and four to the other side, that's an unbalanced line to us, and that is a usual formation. Any other formation than those two is an unusual formation. So let me give you a couple examples just to give you a feel for it. First is our cat right formation. In cat right, the ball's between the hashes. We have our center, and we've got a shotgun quarterback. To his left, we have three eligible receivers. To his right, we have five on the line, including an end, and then we have a back behind the end. Behind the line. So we've got five guys with the back behind him. So in cat right, we've got three guys to the left, a group of two in the center, and six to the right. 3, 2, and 6 is 11. 11 guys, we're going to have 7 on the line of scrimmage every single time. We are going to be set for 1 second every time, so we will have a legal formation and a legal. Okay, let me tell you about another formation. It's Fresno, and we took it from Fresno State, adjusted a little bit, but basically took it from them. And Fresno has in the middle of the field, center and shotgun quarterback, but there are also two legal receivers who line up in the guard area where an offensive guard would be, but a yard back. So they are kind of like up backs in a punt formation. They're legal receivers in the middle of the field. To the left of the quarterback, we have a end and two linemen, and to the right, we have an end and two linemen with a back behind. So we got our 7 guys on the line. We have 2 ends, and our numbers work out. If you look at it across the way, you have 3 guys to the left. You have 4 in the center, counting the 2 eligible receivers over the guard, and you have 4 to the right. 3, 4, 4, 11. Legal formation as long as we have 7 on the line and are set. And let me tell you one more quick one just to get a feel. This one you have to think of left, center, right, right. It's our stack formation. And in stack, our groupings are 2 to the left, 2 to the left center, 2 to the middle, 3 to the right center, and 2 to the right. So if you add those up, 2, 2, 2, 3, and 2, you get 11. You got the idea. We'll line up all kinds of different ways that people maybe have never even seen as our unusual formations. Okay, let me ask you a question. As you listen to this, have you ever been late for something important that you wanted to get to? You look down on your watch, you're supposed to be there in 5 minutes, and you know you're 15 minutes away. And you have no way that you're going to get there in time. And I want to ask you how you felt in that situation when you were late and it was important. When you were late and you had to walk into the meeting late after everybody else. Usually not very good. Well, what our defense tries to do is when we are dealing with our 4-second tempo from break to snap, we want the 11 individuals on defense to feel late, at least many of them to feel late. And that isn't a good feeling. And I bet most of you have been lost at some time in your life, somewhere. Used to get lost in cars all the time because there's no Alexa and no GPS, and you get lost driving around. Those of you in a rural area, I bet you've been lost in the woods. I know I grew up in a rural area, and I got lost in the woods several times. and you're out there in the middle of the trees. You got trees on your left and right all over the place, and you just don't know which direction to go. You try to look at the sun, you try to figure things out, but you don't know if you have it right. You're doing the best you can, and it's not a good feeling because you don't know. You figure you'll get out eventually, but you don't want to spend the night in the forest, and you're hoping that you made some right decisions on how to get out. Our unusual formations, when we line up in different places, we want our defense, or we want their defense, to feel lost. That lost feeling. Where am I supposed to be? Am I in the right place? Am I going the right way? That's what we want them to think. Okay. Now, individually, our tempo, break to snap in 4 seconds, that will create some defensive stress. Even if you line up in normal formations, a little bit of defensive stress. Our unusual formations, if the defense hasn't seen them, even if you gave them, let's say, 10 seconds to line up, that would put some stress on them because they might not know that if they're really lined up right at the snap anyhow. However, you put the two together and you have created something pretty amazing. For one thing, you've created chaos on the defensive side. It's not a matter of stress anymore. You have exponentially increased the stress level of guys on defense. And that's what Gashe'em Offense is designed to do, create chaos. Now, I told you that 30% of our plays are unusual formation and plays. 70% are plays that are proven plays that we have on video, and we will use the video on every play as an important teaching tool to show our guys what to do and what works, okay? 70% of these plays, most of them are from college, good number from the pros, few from high schools. Now, we have not taken Oklahoma's offense or Clemson's offense or anybody else. But what we have done is we have taken the best 3 Alabama plays, explosive plays, big plays, okay, that they have executed that we really like, that we take from them. We take the best 2 Clemson plays, 1 from Oklahoma, 2 from Ohio State. We may take 1 from Georgia Southern if we see them run a great play that meets all our criteria of a Gashe'em explosive play. So we take basically the best from the best, and we put them in our collection, our basket of Gashe'em plays. So we've got some pretty good plays in there. Now, let's just say Alabama, we mentioned them first, they have a great wide receiver, and they've had several, obviously. And he goes out and he makes a great cut and goes deep, and he beats your corner by 2 or 3 yards, catches the ball in stride, 70-yard touchdown. Now, that's an explosive play for Alabama, but it's probably not a Gashe'em play because the way we look at it, we're saying, now, if that was a walk-on at Alabama, would he have been able to make the same play? If the answer is yes, then it can be a Gashe'em play. But in most cases, the answer is no, because walk-ons can't get that type of separation. And, we don't expect that we're going to have players like that. Now, if you do, and it would be rare that you do, but you've got one of the top players in your state at wide receiver, and you can get him one-on-one with an average high school cornerback. If that is the case, then I think you have a big advantage. It might be 1 versus 1, but really your receiver is almost like 2 because he is that much better than the other guy. So then it can be part of the offense and it would fit and it would make a lot of sense. Okay. Let me talk a couple nuggets now, just break the situation a little bit and we'll be done quickly. One, well, they both have to do with fame. I didn't have much fame myself, but I was around fame, and I found it interesting. And talk about home visits in recruiting. And when you have a home visit, the coach that is in that state, used to be by state, now that's getting more positions, but it used to be if you were recruiting Oklahoma and there was a player in that state, you would be the coach to do this, to go with Lou and fly with him on a private plane, land fairly close to the player's home. There'd be a car waiting, and you'd take off to the home. Have to know how to get there. Okay, so you would be driving. Lou would be in the passenger seat. He would, a lot of times, have a lot of work to do because he's a busy guy, so he'd just start working. And if he did, you didn't say a word, just you were his chauffeur, or he'd strike up a conversation and you'd have a talk, just depending on the situation. So one time we're driving down the road and we are on the turnpike. And Lou says, stop in there at the rest stop there. I got to use the restroom. So, okay, boom. We pull in, stop. And one thing about fame also, and also having to be someplace, we got to be there at this home visit on time. Lou, last thing he wants to do is be late for something like that. So if you're famous, people want to stop you. And he power walks, he speed walks, he could be in the Olympics. He is moving fast. And you do the best job you can just to keep up with him, running behind oftentimes. So he gets into the rest stop, and he is right in the middle of doing his business at the urinal, and a guy wanders up to his right shoulder, says, Coach Holtz, it was fantastic seeing you. I never would have expected you to see you here. I'm a big fan of Notre Dame's. Could I get your autograph? And Lou found the humor in it and chuckled a little bit. Said, well, you know, I'm pretty busy right now. But if you're patient, I'll wash my hands and I'll get you that autograph. So he did that, but it just made me think, you know, this fame might not be all it's cracked up to be. You got to race around to try to avoid people, and then nothing's sacred. Whatever you're doing, you could get stopped in the middle of it. Another story. We are coming, this is coming home from a home visit. A player in Ohio in the middle of the sticks. He's out there, and we are coming back, and there are very few crossroads and trees on both sides of the road all over the place. We eventually get to a crossroad, and I see Lou going to get something. And then he gets it, goes up to the counter, and I can see the clerk, and it's a woman, kind of a motherly-looking woman, and they smile and they chat for 15 or 20 seconds, and then Lou comes out to the car, and we head down the road. Well, quickly he gets engrossed. Yeah, he does say, you know, that had a nice chat with that woman. What a nice person. She knows a lot about football, and she recognized me immediately. And so we go down the road, and it occurs to me, I don't know what Lou bought, but I'm kind of curious. So I look over, and of all things, I see that he has a box of animal crackers. Okay, head football coach at Notre Dame bought a box of animal crackers. And then we keep driving, and he's still working. He's engrossed in what he's doing, so I'm to my thoughts. And I start thinking about this woman going home at night. Now, she's a football fan. I assume her husband is too. So they're going, you know, she says, Henry, guess who stopped in the store tonight? And Henry says, I don't know, Marge. Who stopped in? Gladys? Did Gladys stop in the store tonight? She says, no, it wasn't Gladys. It was Lou Holtz. And Henry kind of rolled his eyes a little bit, thinking, that store's in the middle of nowhere. What in the heck is Lou Holtz doing there? And then he says, Marge, okay, what did Lou Holtz buy from you? And she said, a box of animal crackers. And that just struck me funny. And I almost started giggling. I turned my head. I really didn't want to have to explain to Lou why I'm driving down the road, why I'm laughing. And fortunately, he was busy enough that I never had to. So one more nugget. Now, this would be more that can help your team. If you're a coach who wants to have more players, more players who will fit in with the team, and players that perhaps have some really good talent that can contribute to winning. So here's what I think is good. At your next staff meeting, or even make a staff meeting just for this, if you need to do it quickly, have your players each have a small piece of paper and something to write with, and have them put in the upper right-hand corner their name. On the left-hand side, say, list the name of at least 3 players. Now, you can list 8 or 9 if you want, and if you can think of them, but list at least 3 who attend this school, who are not playing football, that you would like to have as your teammate. They're good guys. They'd be fun to hang out with. Maybe everybody wants to win, so maybe they have a special talent. They're a great basketball player or a track star or what have you. Maybe they don't play any sports, but they're really a great athlete, and you think they could and should. So put their name down. If you happen to know their cell phone, write it next to their name. If you don't worry about it. But do that, and then when you're done, hand the paper in and leave. So what this does is you look at those papers, and at the end you might have 40 of them, let's say. And let's say that Mike Lewis is listed on 14 of them. Well, that's pretty significant. You can go to Mike Lewis as a coach. Now, you could say to Mike all the time about how you want to coach him and everything and talk to him, and that's going to mean something, but usually won't be effective. But if you tell him exactly what you told the team, and say, and here, Mike, take a look at these sheets. 14 different guys listed you as somebody that they think could help our football team, that you'd have a good experience, you're a good teammate, and that they'd like to have you as a member of our team. So I'd like to coach you, but more importantly, your peers would like to have you on their team. Let them think about it a little bit. You don't have to go any farther as you're talking with them. If nothing happens, a few days later, you can ask, you keep copies, obviously, a few of those guys who you think might be closest to him to, hey, did Lewis say anything about my talking to him about football? No, coach, didn't say anything to me, don't know. Well, if possible, if it fits, just ask him. Say, hey, did coach talk to you about coming out for football? And just get an idea. It might be, there's no way that it can happen or should happen or, no chance. Or it might be that he's on the verge. He's on the fence, and he's thinking about it pretty seriously. So report back to me if you would, and let me know what the deal is. And you have a pretty good chance of getting the Mike Lewises of the world, who might be, who knows, he might be the fastest 100-meter guy in the school to come with you. Okay, let's end. Let me give you a quick review of what you learned about the Gashe'em offense, the pillars. It's a collection of explosive plays that are designed to get a first down every snap. Number 2, we want a big advantage every play. We want a numbers advantage when blocking. We want to have 5 guys block 2 or 3, maybe 4, but we don't want to have 5 guys blocking 5. We definitely don't want to go there. Receivers, we want to get them wide open. We think we can get them wide open, so why make it tough on ourselves? Number 3, tempo. Our break to snap is 4 seconds. 4 seconds. And we will never wait for the defense. Heck, we won't even wait for our scout team in practice. We will dictate to the defense. When we're ready to go, we're going. Number 4, we will have unusual plays and formations, and that'll constitute 30% of the offense. Number 5, 70% of the offense will be proven explosive plays that we've taken from different colleges and pro teams. We've taken the best explosive plays from the best and formed an offense with those plays. Now, those are all pillars. I'm going to add a 6th just to complete something here, that we said 30% unusual plays, 70% proven plays that we have on video. That's 100%. That's the entire offense. So we have no time for RPOs. We will have no outside zones or inside zones. We'll have no spread offense plays. We'll have nothing that the defense can recognize and say, I remember this when some other team ran this against us. We know how to stop that, or at least we think we know how to stop it. We don't want them to see anything that is familiar. So I hope you are at least intrigued as we finish up here with the Gashe'em offense. Our next podcast with a few nuggets will be about the same length, and we will try to post them, all of our podcasts, on Saturday, each Saturday. We will view, during our second podcast, we'll view some of those proven plays, and you'll see them on film, and we'll talk about why they are Gashe'em plays and discuss that. So, have a great weekend, my friends, or a great week, my friends. Adios.